Hi everyone, this is Professor Warsi. Today we're going to learn the art of argumentation. We will learn Aristotle's strategies for persuasive argumentation. Okay? But before we move on, let's learn who Aristotle was. Aristotle was one of the greatest thinkers in history. His philosophy has influenced a great deal of academic disciplines, including philosophy, logic, ethics, politics, biology, and even businesses. So he is still considered a great thinker. People read his work, and today's focus is about ethos, logos, and pathos. All right? So we will learn 3 strategies for argumentation. Okay. So today's objectives are to define what ethos is, logos, and pathos. Okay, these are 3 different strategies. We will also learn how to use each mode in argumentation. So those of you who are college students and who have to write an argumentation paper, you can incorporate each of these modes. Okay, we will also analyze, I'll give you some examples of ethos, logos, and pathos. We will identify and evaluate effective and poor use of each appeal. These are all strategic appeals, ways to persuade the reader or the audience if a person is speaking or giving a lecture. And we will also learn how to apply these persuasive techniques in writing and speaking. So, what is Aristotle's persuasion model? Okay, the model is as follows. Ethos is credibility and ethics. Logos is logic, and that's why you see the root logos, logic and reasoning, something that students need to learn and use in their argumentation papers. Pathos is emotion. So speakers, good writers, they make an emotional appeal to the reader or listeners. Effective argumentation balances all 3. So your professor will most likely ask you to include all 3 modes of argumentation. All right? So let's begin with the first mode. What is ethos? Ethos is the credibility or trustworthiness of the speaker. So it is important for you as you incorporate ethos in your argumentative paper to cite secondary sources, papers, articles written by experts, okay, because they have credibility, morality, ethics, and reputation. Now, let me give you an example. A doctor discussing health risks has strong ethics because a doctor has gone to medical school, has been treating patients for a long time, is experienced, he has studied medical science formally. So you would trust a doctor because he or she has credibility. And that is ethos. Okay? Let's look at some examples of ethos in action. As I just mentioned to you, expert opinions, personal branding, reputation of a person. You say, oh, so and so is a great doctor. She is a great orthopedic surgeon. So look at some examples of ethos. As a certified nutritionist, I recommend this diet for heart health. Like a cardiologist may say, you need to change your food habits. Go and see a nutritionist or a dietitian. Harvard researchers have found that now Harvard is one of the most reputable universities in the world, and Harvard has researchers, scientists, experts, authors. The last example, with 20 years of experience in law, I assure you this is the best course of action. Okay? So that is ethos. Let's move on to the second one. What is logos? Logos refers to logical reasoning. It uses facts and evidence, not just a hearsay not somebody's, opinion or thoughts. Logos is about logical reasoning. When you use facts and evidence, when you give the reader evidence, the reader earns your respect. What are some of the key components of logos? Facts, statistics, numbers always work, and logical arguments. Let's look at one example of logos. Studies show that students who sleep 8 hours perform 20% better on tests. So students who do not get a good night's sleep, they may not perform as well as those who sleep 8 hours every day. So that is logos, logic, because there's a connection between sleeping well and performing well. So that is logic. Some examples of logos in action. According to a 2023 study, 85% of people prefer renewable energy. So that is probably a result of a survey. So 85% of people, they want to use renewable energy. Okay? The data clearly indicates a decline in crime after curfew laws were enforced. Okay? The last one, the third mode, is pathos. Okay? Some words you may have heard is sympathy, apathy, and empathy. They all have the same root, pathos, path. So pathos appeals to the audience's emotions. What are some of the key components of pathos? Personal stories, right? Vivid imagery and using emotional language. Politicians are very good at this, right? They make an emotional appeal. They convince, they persuade the audience that their point is right or their position is right. Let's look at an example. It's very emotional. Imagine a world where no child goes hungry, right? It affects the listeners. If a speaker is giving a talk and they say, imagine a world where no child goes hungry, people will be, yeah, that would be a beautiful world. Okay, so what is pathos? You just learned that it's an emotional appeal. It appeals to the audience's emotions. Okay, very good. So examples of pathos in action. Think about the countless animals suffering due to deforestation, like in the Amazon, the Amazon forest in Brazil. Poachers are cutting down trees, and animals who live there, they suffer. Okay, if we don't act now, our children will inherit a dying planet, and that's a call to action. So please stop hurting the planet. So these are examples of pathos. Now, let's do some exercise. As I always ask you to study with me, learn, and then apply your knowledge. So read the following statements and identify whether they're ethos, logos, or pathos. So there are three examples for you. Read each one of them carefully and then determine which one is which. Okay? Number one is ethos, the second one is pathos, and the third one is logos. All right, I hope you got the answers correct. Okay, now let's compare ethos, logos, and pathos. So good versus poor ethos. Remember we talked about credibility, like you trust a doctor because they specialize in a certain area. Cardiologists, pulmonologists, nephrologists. So good ethos and poor ethos. So rather than telling you, I need you to read these two examples carefully and ask yourself, why is it that the first one is good and the second one is a poor ethos? If someone just says, trust me, just trust me, I know what I'm talking about, you think you'll be convinced? That is very weak, right? There's no credibility. Why should I trust you just because you're saying something? Now let's compare good versus poor logos. So there's an example of good logos, so there's an example of poor logos. Compare the two and ask yourselves why one is good and the other one is poor. Right? Because you need to think for yourself as well. Now let's compare good versus poor pathos. Emotions. Which one do you think will make an emotional appeal and will be very persuasive and affect the reader's emotions or listener's emotions in terms of speech? So these are just some exercises to get you to differentiate between good pathos and poor pathos, or good logos and poor logos. Okay, so here's one example. See how the writer has used all three modes: ethos, logos, and pathos. Exercise 1. Let's do some exercise. Read the whole passage very carefully and identify the type. I have numbered the sentences for your reference. Okay, so read the whole paragraph and then decide which one is which. So number 1 is logos, number 2 is pathos, and number 3 is ethos. Okay, I hope you're doing well. This is a very important lesson for you, especially if you are a college student and you are writing papers for your professors. And it is not just that this lesson is relevant, right, to people who are in college. Even if you're in high school and you're studying, you are to write several academic essays for your teacher. You also could use this. Exercise 2. Do exactly what we did before. Read the whole passage slowly and carefully and identify the type. You may wish to pause the video here for a few seconds before you move on. Try to answer the question and identify the type. So number 1 was ethos, number 2 is logos, and number 3 is pathos. Okay, let's take a couple of quiz. We are almost at the end of the lesson. Let's take a quiz. These are multiple choice questions. Which appeal focuses on credibility? A, B, C, and D. Number 2. Which of the following is an example of logos? A, B, C, or D? What do you think? So 1 is B and 2 is B. I hope that you got both answers correct. Okay? Great. So, writing a persuasive argument. You need to learn to use these modes, right? Write a persuasive paragraph on one of these topics, or more than one topic, if you feel like writing more. Remember, these are all lessons in academic writing. So I've given you lots of topics, right? School uniform, or banning plastic bags, gender equity, men and women are equal. So just write one paragraph, okay? You choose a topic and then take a position. Gender equity, for example, climate change, free college education. Do you believe that college education should be free for all, regardless of their, finances? So write a paragraph and show it to me. I'd be more than happy to give you feedback. Write a short paragraph and type it in the comment box below and say, Professor Warzi, can you look it over and then give me some feedback? That way we can keep the dialogue going. I would love to read your paragraphs and give you some comments. okay, for improvement. All right, so we have come to the end of the lesson. Let's summarize the key points. Ethos, we learned, there are 3 ways to persuade the audience. Ethos builds credibility. Logos refers to logic. And pathos appeals to emotions. And good writers who are excellent, and they write persuasive essays or articles, or even news columns, the best arguments uses all 3 of them. So as you write your papers, make sure that you cite credible people, experts, scientists, and also use logical reasoning that should be foolproof, and make emotional appeals to the reader. Questions. Just one question I have, actually, not questions. Final questions. Can you craft a persuasive statement using ethos, logos, and pathos? So go back to the former slide, read the exercise that I'm asking you to do. I've given you some topics. So try to write one paragraph and see if you can include all 3 of them. All right? So thank you for taking this lesson with me. I look forward to seeing you again. I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.